Welcome to the AI for Career Success video overview by Curt Robbins. We're experts at AI coaching and helping professionals like you and your employees upskill in AI. Today, we are presenting an academic review of an insightful April 30th, 2024 report published in TechCrunch. It's written by Sarah Perez, entitled Apple Was Surprised by AI-Driven Demand for Macs. For IT professionals and enterprise decision-makers, understanding the hardware shifts driven by artificial intelligence is absolutely critical, and Sarah's report offers some crucial empirical data on that exact phenomenon. We will be analytically deconstructing this market shift across 5 thematic areas. First, the Q2 earnings beat. Second, the MacBook Neo catalyst. Third, how local AI is driving demand. Fourth, the shifting landscape in enterprise and education. And finally, navigating the resulting supply constraints. Let's move right into our first section. Section 1, the Q2 earnings beat, exceeding Wall Street expectations. What's particularly fascinating here is the delta between market consensus and financial reality. While institutional investors anticipated Mac revenues to hover in the low $8 billion range, essentially projecting a flat year-over-year trajectory, the actual figures reached $8.4 billion. That represents a solid 6% year-over-year growth for what has traditionally been considered a non-core segment of Apple's modern business model. And this unexpected hardware beat didn't just occur in a vacuum. It contributed to a highly robust total quarterly revenue of $111.2 billion, which is a 17% overall increase from the same period last year. For strategic planners, this clearly indicates that capital is actively flowing back into endpoint hardware, heavily influenced by new compute requirements. That brings us to Section 2, the MacBook Neo catalyst, driving late quarter hardware sales. When analyzing hardware impacts, we really have to look at the timeline logistics. Pre-orders for the MacBook Neo only began on March 4th. Because the quarter ended on March 28th, these units were realistically only shipping and generating recognizable revenue in the final 2 to 3 weeks of Q2. Furthermore, as certain models rapidly sold out, a portion of that initial demand was actually pushed into April. Despite this incredibly narrow window, the impact on the quarterly data was both immediate and mathematically significant. Apple CEO Tim Cook characterized customer demand for the Neo as quite literally off the charts. But more importantly for ecosystem analysis, Cook noted that Apple set a new record during this quarter for customers entering the Mac ecosystem for the very first time. This suggests a net new expansion of their user base rather than simply existing users entering a standard upgrade cycle. Moving to Section 3, local AI drives demand, the open claw phenomenon. For working professionals and developers, the computing paradigm is actively shifting. Rather than relying exclusively on cloud computing, there's a pronounced pivot toward local AI workloads. IT professionals are aggressively utilizing platforms like the Mac Mini and Mac Studio to run artificial intelligence models, specifically models like OpenClaw, directly on localized hardware to power their agentic tools. Doing this dramatically reduces latency and addresses the increasingly stringent enterprise data privacy concerns we are all facing. Interestingly, Apple themselves didn't accurately forecast this velocity. Cook explicitly acknowledged that the industry's recognition of Mac infrastructure as an optimal platform for localized AI materialized much faster than Apple's internal projections. The market essentially moved to edge AI faster than the manufacturer anticipated. We can see the resulting data points globally. Mac Mini and Mac Studio devices are selling out rapidly. Notably, the Mac Mini has ascended to become the top-selling desktop in China. This regional surge is tied directly to an intense local enthusiasm for OpenClaw development, proving that developer behavior acts as a leading indicator of broader hardware procurement trends. This leads us to Section 4, Enterprise and Education Shifts, Strategic Platform Migrations. Enterprise demand is notably shifting. The TechCrunch report highlights leading AI firms, specifically Perplexity, formally selecting the Mac platform as their preferred environment to engineer enterprise-grade AI assistants. When industry leaders optimize for a specific silicon architecture to build their AI products, broader enterprise adoption invariably follows. Concurrently, institutional shifts are occurring in the education sector. We're observing organizations, such as Kansas City Public Schools, making the strategic decision to abandon Chromebooks in favor of adopting the MacBook Neo. This suggests that even at the institutional level, the demand for more robust, locally capable compute platforms is beginning to outweigh legacy cloud-dependent hardware strategies. Finally, Section 5, Navigating Supply Constraints, Assessing the Logistical Impact. There is a critical nuance in the data here. Despite the impressive year-over-year beat we discussed earlier, quarter-over-quarter Mac revenue was actually flat. Empirically, this suggests that the new AI-driven demand hasn't yet been able to fully scale. The revenue is currently capped not by a lack of buyer interest, but strictly by inventory limits. This forces enterprise IT decision-makers to ask a vital procurement question. When will Apple's supply chain successfully equalize with this surging enterprise AI demand? If you're planning an organizational hardware refresh to support local AI, timeline logistics are now your highest risk factor. It's important to clarify the root cause of the delay. The constraint isn't rooted in a fundamental silicon manufacturing defect or a component failure. Rather, as Cook plainly stated to analysts, the corporation fundamentally undercalled the market demand. They simply didn't manufacture enough units to meet the sudden requirement for local AI development. According to Apple's forward-looking statements, achieving a true state of equilibrium between supply and demand for the highly sought-after Mac Mini and Mac Studio models will take several months. For IT procurement, this means you must factor in extended lead times for the remainder of the calendar year when sourcing these high-performance endpoints. In summary, the tactical necessity of running local AI models has unexpectedly reshaped endpoint hardware procurement. Driven by tools like OpenClaw and endorsed by enterprise leaders like Perplexity, we're observing a structural, albeit currently constrained, shift toward Apple's silicon platforms, culminating in an $8.4 billion quarter. As you strategize your own infrastructure, evaluating the role of local AI computation is no longer optional. It is a foundational requirement. The era of cloud-only AI is officially over. The question is your hardware infrastructure ready for the shift? Thank you for watching. This is where we teach you AI and help you get smarter than your competition. If you like these videos, use the QR code at the beginning to buy us a coffee or hire us to coach you or your employees in AI. And please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share to help us reach a wider audience.